Hello, I hope you're having a good day. I am about to ruin it. I want you to attempt the following question. Don't panic, I'll explain it. This is lead code problem 2 called add two numbers. The description is as follows. We are given two non-empty linked lists representing two non-negative integers. The digits are stored in reverse order, and each node contains a single digit. We are to add the two numbers and return the sum as a linked list. We may also assume that two numbers do not contain any leading zero, except the number 0 itself. If we look at example 1, we have linked list 2, 4, 3, which is the value 342, and linked list 2, which is 5, 6, 4, which is the value 465. And this is how we carry out the addition. 5 plus 2 is 7. 4 plus 6 is 10. But because we can only store a single digit, we cannot store the value 10. We can only store the rightmost digit, that being 0. Which you see where my cursor is, we store the value of 0. And then we go to the next pair of nodes. 3 plus 4 is 7. But the one that we did not use from our earlier, from the value of 10, we also add it. So it's 3 plus 4 plus 1 to give us the value 8. This will give us the ending result as 708, or 807, as we see right here. Here are some constraints. We are told that the number of nodes, this means the length of the linked list, is at minimum 1 to a maximum of 100 nodes long. The value in each node is anywhere from 0 all the way up to 9. And it is guaranteed that the list represents a number that does not have leading zeros. This is also very important. If we notice here, we see that we have 9.7 million submissions and only 4 million have been accepted. This gives us an acceptance rate of 41.4%. You can take a few minutes, pause the video. I will be here when you return. But if you as a beginner say, well, this is a medium question, it's too hard for me. Fair enough. Let's do something easier. This is the first question on LeetCode called TwoSum. Again, I will explain it to you. We are given an array of integers. An array is just a data structure used for storing data. In our case, it will be storing integers. We will also be given a parameter called target. We have to return indices, an index is a position, of the two numbers such that they add up to the value of target. We may assume that each input would have exactly one solution, and you may not use the same element twice. Therefore, the two indices must be unique. We can return the answer in any order. We see example 1. Nums is an array containing the values 2, 7, 11, and 15. Our target is the value of 9. We can see that this list is quite small, and we can actually say that indices 0 and 1, or positions 0 and 1, which represents 2 plus 7, will give us a target of 9. We also have some constraints. We see that the length of the array is at minimum 2 with a maximum of 10 raised to the 4th power, so a very large array. We also see that the values in the array range from negative 10 to the 9th power all the way to positive 10 to the 9th power. The same also goes for target. We also have our last constraint, which is only one valid answer exists. The most important part. 22 million submissions, accepted 11.2 million. This would give us an acceptance rate of 50.9% and a non-acceptance or a failure rate of 49.1%. This is the first question on LeetCode. And it is an easy question. This is something you should be able to solve within your first year of learning programming. But again, let's say for whatever reason, this is too difficult. I understand. I'll give you one that's even easier. Let's go into VS Code and I will create a new file. And let me just write a prompt. You can just follow afterward. So, you are to find, download, and store the lyrics of your favorite song as a text file. Then write a script that reads the text and returns the words that appear the most, second most, and third most, with their associated word count. And then after that, you are to store the results in another text file. Again, this is an easy question. Take a few minutes, pause the video. I will be here when you return. In fact, this is what we are trying to do. Improvise, adapt, overcome. Now, let me make it clear. When I say programming, I mean anything that falls under the umbrella term of the process of writing computer programs. So this is not dependent on a single language or technology. So understand that. This video applies if you're learning web development, if you're learning C++, Python, doesn't matter. Also, as much as this video is for you, the viewer, it is also for the past me who struggled to build the simplest of programs. And I mean simplest. I could not get print hello world to run in Python. And clearly, I still can't. It's a shame. That doesn't seem right. Should it actually be? Right, that seems much better. I'm sure that program will run. Now, before we begin discussing the problems, problem origins, and finally problem solutions, I want to make something clear. Unlike many other disciplines, the buy-in cost, the buy cost for computer science, or in your case, just programming, is much higher than other fields. In fact, When I was in high school and we had technology classes, we would often build circuits, and the costs of the cables, the batteries, bulbs, switches, and many other equipment was honestly quite cheap. In fact, you could find all components and they would still work. If you didn't want to buy a breadboard, you could literally just use any board and you could either solder your connections or just tape them together. It didn't matter. In fact, the cost of technology just beginning it was actually cheaper than the cost of my English lessons in high school. Now we will move on to computer science, where the buy-in cost for computer science or just programming is a computer with decent specs. Hopefully, you also invest in an internet connection and addictive amounts of caffeine. The computer or laptop alone will run you higher than the other two subjects I have mentioned. The reason I bring this up is you must remember you are competing with people who have had access to these resources for a very long time. So do not feel disheartened when you, at say age 18, has only 1 year of experience in programming and is not as efficient as some other 18-year-old who may have 6 years of programming. It is normal to feel out of place in comp-sci related fields, especially programming. I realize I wrote the script for this video in the most unreadable font. This is my mistake. What's the solution? Choose a more readable font. Now enough of this foreplay. Let's start listing the problems. Problem 1. You are not as knowledgeable as you think you are. I hate to expose you, but you claim to know concepts. You claim to be able to apply those concepts. In reality, you are gaslighting yourself. In fact, there's only one book you have ever studied, and you have honestly mastered it because you know nothing. You say you know object-oriented programming, but when you see an initialization method, you freeze like a deer in headlights. Now tell me, does this code scare you? I have variables outside functions. I have an arrow in a function. Are you perplexed? Is this confusing? Do you have any idea what's going on? Tell me. The dreaded if name equals main. Now, relax. There's no need for you to go screaming to your mommy. It's all okay. Every now and then, I will come across code of this nature. Don't learn, just code. And you as a beginner, you also buy into it. Instead of learning then coding, you just draw 25. It is usually followed up by, there's no need to study, learn as you go. Yes, that's the definition of studying. That definition means studying. Let's take a few steps back from programming and talk about something else. Let me open up my whiteboard. Here's a very simple example. When I took calculus, I was told to take the derivative of some function f of x. Let's say f of x was a function 4x squared plus sine x minus 4. Do you understand how ridiculous it would have been if someone said, Don't study calculus. Just take the derivative, bro. How do I do that? But luckily, I did study calculus. So when it came to easy questions like this, I would just use the basics. So when I had to take the derivative, it was easy. And this is the derivative of that prior function. The derivative of f of x is just 8x plus cosine of x. Let's go back to VS Code. Do you see my point? I believe this problem is a problem that plagues a lot of people early in their programming journey. In fact, it's something I am guilty of. I used to speedrun courses. If it was a resource that teaches you how to code, I swear I would be done in one day. And then again, when the moment presented itself and I had to build the simplest of programs, I always had to go back and relearn the basics. I was learning twice that which I could learn once. And this is what manifests the problem. Refusing to invest time in actually studying the basics and buying into the program first, learn later. I spent more time debugging basic programs than I did building them. Do you understand how ridiculous that is? Okay, cool. How can I code? I do not even know the syntax. It is discouraging to face errors early in your programming journey, errors that can be avoided. In fact, if you studied programming, you would know what the errors are, how to program to limit errors, and not to sweat it when you do encounter errors. Now, you can stop screaming at your screen. Here are the solutions for problem 1. 1. Work at your own pace. If you do not understand a concept, look it up. You can use YouTube or you can just go on Google. Because AI was released this year, if you do not understand a concept, you can either ask it to something like ChatGPT or Bing AI, or just copy the problem and paste it into your AI. It will give you a good or at least a decent explanation. Next, stop speed running everything. You must be willing to invest time. As I said earlier, the buy-in cost for computer science, in your case programming, is quite high. Therefore, compare your progress only with yourself. And this is the most important. Finally, while learning concepts, regardless of how simple they seem, actively apply them. Be it learning how to print data to the console in Python, inheritance in object-oriented programming, linked lists in C++, or dynamic programming. If at any point, while learning, you come across something you do not understand, go back and see if you missed anything, and then try again to understand and implement. And if need be, cast away your pride and look up the solution. Use Google. Maybe you can ask a friend. Relax. I didn't mean to touch on a sensitive subject. You are learning how to program. You obviously have no friends. My bad. Look up explanations on YouTube. Let's go back to this example. Let's say you don't understand this. All you do is Control A to select everything, Control C to copy everything, and then go paste it into ChatGPT. This is not difficult code. You should get a very good explanation. Something else you can use is still Stack Overflow, but if that's intimidating, go to Reddit, create an account, farm karma, and then go to the programming subreddits. You'll typically get more information and probably faster. So, we have so far covered problem 1, what manifests the problem and its solutions. At this point, you would have invested a decent amount of time and studied. Remember, studied means learn and apply. That is what studying means. So you studied some specific language. You now have a grasp on the majority of the basic concepts relating to one language. Those concepts may or may not overlap with another language. An example of this would be object-oriented programming. Let's say you learned it in C++. Object-oriented programming also exists in another language, let's say Python. Are they exactly the same? Of course not, the syntax is different. But the concepts are pretty much the same. So there will obviously be overlap. We will now talk about problem 2. Problem 2. Programming tutorial purgatory. Do you often find yourself finishing one tutorial and immediately beginning another? Are you currently chasing your 5th Freecodecamp Python certificate right now? Are you the toxic in a toxic relationship? Do not become a certificate bunny. I will say it again. Do not become a certificate bunny. Here is the too long didn't read. Let's say you followed step 1, and let's say you did complete a tutorial, which led to a certificate. Or you just read a short book on some language, let's say Python, and you did some of the problems. You now have a strong foundation of the basics. You believe yourself capable, and you decide you are going to become the greatest developer LeetCode has ever seen and will ever see. You then attempt your first problem on data structures and algorithms, and reality sets in. This is the big leagues. 1,000 test cases, and you pass 1. Go ahead. Give yourself a consolation prize. But I studied and I did the work. Why is it so hard? You ask yourself. You now make a complete 180. You decide you need to seek more tutorials. And honestly, maybe you do need more insight. And a tutorial or certificate may provide that insight, but not in the way that you think. I will get back to this later. What if a loop comes into existence? Every time you approach something unknown, you retreat back and you use a tutorial to brighten your path ahead. You are being led by the finger through the darkness. And honestly, this sounds great. But what if, for example, you are learning a new technology or even an old technology that does not have many video tutorials made on it? What do you do then? Give you an example. Recently, I've been building graphic user interfaces with C++ and Qt Creator. It comes with tutorials, and in fact, there are tutorials on YouTube. And yet, not a single one that I have seen was specific enough for my case. So what did I do? I will show you. Let's go back to the whiteboard. Aptly named, How to Avoid Programming Tutorial Purgatory. Step 1. Is there actually a problem? No, I just not want to invest the time. Here's the reality. Maybe when you begin programming, some questions take a few seconds up to, let's say, a max of 20 minutes to solve. As you begin more programming and you start tackling more advanced questions, the solution times may go from 30 minutes to an hour to maybe even a few hours. All you have to do is spend more time. You have all the needed tools. Let's go back to one. Is there actually a problem? Yes. What is the nature of the problem? Let's go branch to the right first. The problem is barely related to any of the concepts I have learned. I'll give you an example. Let's say you want to learn web development, web dev. And at this point, you have learned HTML, so you know how to structure a web page. You also learned C++. Now you know how to style a web page. And now you want to learn JavaScript. What does JavaScript have to do with CSS? Not much. Their syntax is different. The reason you use them is different. The same with HTML and JavaScript. You could make the concept, well, they're all used for web development. Okay, but apart from that, they don't have much in common. So therefore, this problem is barely related to any of the concepts you have learned. So what do? You refer back to problem 1 and you treat JavaScript as its own thing. You go to problem 1, read the solutions, it will tell you what to do. Let's go back. What is the nature of the problem? The problem is closely related to the concepts I have learned. I will say it again. The problem is closely related to the concepts I have learned.